Also, if you get chewing gum in your hair, a little soda water helps. Household tips.
What other tips?
Two subs in the back, playing all them old school tracks. When I pull up, no, you already heard. You ain't gotta say another word. When I pull up, they notice.
Welcome to another episode of Small Talk, where we talk to interesting people around the tech industry. And I have someone cool and interesting beside me, Edo.
Well, I don't think I'm that interesting, and I'm sitting on the wrong side. So actually, the interesting person that we're talking to today is you.
Oh, I get to be interesting today.
Awesome,
Woo!
awesome. And why we're talking to you is because we just wrapped up our worldwide hack.
Yeah.
And you've done how many hacks at Microsoft?
This is my third year running it. Yeah.
So what were your highlights for this particular hack this year?
Oh, that's a hard one. I always like when I see people working together who shouldn't be working together in theory, like who don't know each other, and you see that they're working on teams. There was a team, we had IT, we had a data scientist, we had a person doing visualization, some from here, some from Toronto, someone from Calgary, all across Canada, even, globally. That's kind of the beauty of the hackathon, is it's global. So I think that those are my highlights when I see those teams. And I think my highlights always when someone comes up and they're like, hey, like, can you come see what I did? And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, that's the best part of this job, is you get to actually see the output, and people are really excited about showing that. So I think that that's probably the biggest highlight, I think, for me, is just when people are excited about what they're doing.
The hackathon is an amazing effort. I mean, and fill in the gaps of my understanding of the organization behind it all. I mean, we have a portal where anyone in the world can come to, and so you can be in India hacking with someone in Vancouver around a particular project. A lot of the teams had we worked together with a group in Redmond and a group in London, and the output is shockingly productive for having that distance, and it's all overcome by the passion, the desire to do something. If you were to pick a inspiring hackathon project over your 3 years, what was the one you went, oh man, that I'll never see that one again because it was so amazing, or you hope to see that one again?
I don't know. Every year for me, there's always those things that are going to be super impactful, and then there's those things that that are super whimsical and different. And I think for this year, we reached out to the local community and got a few nonprofits in. And I think watching that project that we had was interesting this year, is we had a group work with the Neil Squire Foundation, and they were extending a device called the Lip Sync that allows someone who's paralyzed in a wheelchair to navigate or to control or have access to items just through blowing into this device. And so they actually connected to drones and RC cars. I think that the moments where you actually see someone build something and the impact that it has are always the most impressive for me. And so I think about projects like that. There's, we had Jeff do the accessibility for charts. There's just been this trend, I think, in the 3 years where people started to realize that they could build things not just for a product, but the impact that it's going to have. So I think that those are kind of my highlights, are those ones, because when you see that tangible moment, that's a moment that actually changes the way that you work and the way that you think about what you're building.
That's cool. I mean, I love the teal kids, man. What was going on there?
Oh.
I was already trying to draft up contracts. They weren't old enough to work. But I mean, I was like, man, these kids are amazing. The way they're talking about the use of our technology or any technology and applying it to a use case such as, hey, here's a hack of how to, be proactive around sleeping and driving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or perhaps a drunk driver,
Yeah.
how the car could react to that. I thought that was amazing. Like, where do we find these kids?
Yeah, so this year we wanted to try something different, and we reached out to our TEALS program, so bringing comp sci to all the high school classrooms, and we said, hey, we'd love to have 3 or 4 teams, and we don't know how this is going to work, and it was really ad hoc, we really winged it, but we're like, we would love to have them here and have them work alongside of an engineer. So not just be mentored, but to actually be working with an engineer to understand what that experience is like. We had 12 students, we had 3 different schools, and they all came in, and the things, it's they're sitting behind me and they're talking about Azure and deploying to DevOps and all this craziness, and I'm like, what what is going on here? Like, and they were so energetic and enthusiastic. And so they ended up working with 7 different engineers here, and they just learned cognitive services, and they learned the platform and picked up things they wanted to learn, and we held a little class for them in the morning and things like that. So I think that was great for our engineers because nothing reinforces what you know more than teaching and mentoring. But I think it was great for them because they spent the week hacking just like we do, and then they just showed up just like we do.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everyone treated them all the same way. And so a few of them actually, at the end of it, like 5 o'clock, my inbox is getting hit by like, hey, I'd like to follow up. So you're talking about hiring them. I've got them in the kicker for you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, I mean, let's take a step back to this whole notion of hacking or hackathon. So, of course, like anything, hackathon starts off with a very pure idea a long time ago. People like, hey, let's hack, and now it's become mainstream. Everyone's hacked, and soon somebody will invent another term that's better than hackathon, but will mean the same thing. And but at the core essence of what a hackathon is, what you've been through so many, and you've been at this sort of creative hacking edge for such a long time. What is the one core thing that a hackathon should produce?
Expression. It's hackathons, no matter what you're doing, who's doing them, it's expression of an idea as fast as you can in the way that it makes the most sense. And I think that if you just put it in that phrase, it becomes more inclusive. Yeah. And so people are like, well, I'm not an engineer. I can't do a hackathon. Do you have an idea? Do you want to figure out how quick and fast you can prototype it and express it in whatever makes sense to you? Then that's what it should be. So I always think at the end of the day, you should be able to have expressed an idea in ideally the context it will be experienced in. But that's how I distill it down for people so that people feel that it's for them. Yeah. And it's just a shortened timeline. It gives you time to focus on it.
Well, I was going to ask about the shortened timeline because, I remember back in the old days. When we had a hackathon and it was like all night.
Yeah,
and
no.
then, and I know that that there's once it becomes mainstream, if people, hey, well, I mean, that's not the healthiest thing. You work on it when you want to work on it. But one thing that you said, and was what was prevalent in those old hacks, was that there was a time constraint. And the time would force you to be creative, and you have limited resources because that forces you to be creative. And it was one of the key components of actually doing anything creative. Is that missed in the hackathons today, or is that still there?
No, I think it's there. I mean, I love the idea that limitations are parameters you work within, and they force you to come up with different ideas. So I think it's still there. I think we just want to step away from, hey, like, you're only producing good ideas if you're staying up all night working on it and you're energized by it to work all night. Like, I don't think that's true. And I think actually teaching people that it's okay to step away from something, and that sometimes clearing your brain, doing something else, a little bit of self-care, and coming back to it the next day, it's going to become clearer. Right. And usually that is gained through confidence. Like, I'm not stressed about it. I know I can figure it out in the morning. I'm good. And that's something that someone maybe over time develops. And so we're trying to create that environment. So we still have the shortened timeline, and people are still, they can, if they want to do that, go ahead. But it's also like building that confidence for people to know that, like, I can do it within this time, and I can also do it and take care of myself.
Right. Yeah. So I'd be interesting to, if you could share your sort of like traveling to these different cities and living and participating in that. Like, one of the most amazing things that I wish I did more in my life was actually live in a different city for a while. Mm-hmm. And how would you compare Vancouver to some of your stomps?
Vancouver is very progressive in so many ways in the tech area, and I think that a lot of the places I've lived is where you go to work, and Vancouver is like where you go to live, and I think that makes a huge difference. And you can see it in the things that people do, and the way they approach their ideas, and the way that they, such a creative industry and growing tech field here. So that's the best way for me to describe it, is that all these other places, you go to work, but I think that Vancouver is definitely a place that you come to live. It's the big cornerstones that make their mark. The big companies have to lift up the smaller companies and give everyone exposure, but also they have to kind of set the tone for what does community look like?
Yeah.
And Vancouver's working on it. They're doing a great job, and we're getting more and more big cornerstone companies coming. But they have to keep in mind that you can't come here, build a building, and stay in your building. And that's not why people want to come to Vancouver if they want to work and live. And so I think we've done a great job, and I think you're starting to see a lot of the other companies really, I mean, Tech Loves Pride is such a great example of that. And I think more of that, you're going to retain talent, keep talent, grow talent, because you're starting to see that involvement. But I do think it starts with the big peeps, you know?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think that's something that we're actually small enough that we should be able to achieve that. I do see, pockets of that in the community, but I think we can do more work there for sure. Absolutely, it's a great observation. Well, thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.
For being my first guest on Small Talk. I will be the host going forward, so I'm expecting all viewership to plunge, but we'll see how that goes next week.
It's going to happen.
That's it?
Just
Yeah. Look at the camera. Bye.
That's funny.